Colorman on this broadcast tomorrow with Dave Thomas, Luc Mullinder. You swipe to him? Can we make sure there he is? We were worried you weren't coming, Luke. We were worried you weren't coming. You clicked the link. I'm like, there he is. He's there. Hey, greatest trick play you've ever seen when you were playing football?
Greatest trick play I've ever seen playing football. You know what? The fumble rooski is always good. The one where the guard takes it off the center and goes around. But you gotta have a quick guard if you're gonna do that. You can't just be any guard out there, because you give it away. So that one's always good. The best play I've seen, and I don't know how this happens. I don't know how it happened, but the best play I've ever seen was a college kid. He faked the fair catch somehow and convinced every single punt cover guy that he wasn't going to run the ball. And they just sort of, they just stopped. They walked past him because he convinced them, I don't know how he did it, that he fair caught the ball. And then he just sort of stood. And as soon as they walked by him, he just took off. And the amount of testicular fortitude that you have to do that, because you're literally going, you can't wave it off because then it's a real fair catch. You literally have to play. I don't know how he did it. Anyways.
What's the one? It was at Boise State on the blue field where the guy, he laid down on the far side. So the punt, he caught the punt and people kind of forgot the other guy was over there and he throws it all the way back across the other side of the field. The guy goes down. I always loved the ones where the guy declares the punt and everyone follows that guy, but it's punted. The punter's the only one that knows it's going to the other side.
Boise State's made a few incredible plays. I remember when they won the Fiesta
Statue
Bowl.
of Liberty.
Yeah, but do you remember they did the hook and ladder to even get there? Mm-hmm. They did two trick plays in one series.
What was the quarterback's name? He played for the Riders.
Seth Daggy?
No.
I wanted to mention Seth Daggy's name on the show for a long time.
Oh, it's going to come to me. And people out
we've had a few big time QBs that didn't end up playing, but here at the Riders. But I mean, the biggest name we ever had who never played was Chris Leak. We had him in our locker room for a year or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Boise State, Colson, trick plays. The quarterback was. We'll come up with it. You know what Bedford Road, our alma mater in Saskatoon, what the trick play was, and then everybody caught on by the time I was in grade 12, so we couldn't use it.
What, graduating high school?
Very much so. Hey, remember I played chess though. It was the bounce.
Hey, Barney, as a guy who plays a lot of chess, man, I'm going to bring a board over there the next time I'm near the studio.
I'll let you play my son Roman because he's way better. I don't have the attention span, fancy that, to play it. Here was our play though, the bounce pass. So I couldn't go out a shotgun. I'd go behind center. And you take it, and then you bounce it out to the wide receiver on the wide side of the field, and it bounces off the ground, and it's behind. So everybody in high school football, right? Kids are sometimes not all there. They think the play's dead because it hit the ground. But it bounces to the wide receiver. Wide receiver catches it, bombs it backside post. It was Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews play.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Bedford Road Collegiate, shout out.
2007 Fiesta Bowl. That's when this happened.
Who was the quarterback?
The senior quarterback was Taylor Tharp.
No. I'll find it out. What are your keys to the game tomorrow?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Well, the game tomorrow. I mean, it's either going to be really interesting or really. I think there's two ways to look at it. If you're the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I've been in one of these situations too, where you're warming up and you don't necessarily know what you're playing for as yet, right? And so the Saskatchewan Roughriders, they'll find out about an hour before kickoff whether the game means first place or the game is just an incredibly important prep game for the BC Lions coming in to town next week. I think that there's advantages to both. I think in the Saskatchewan Roughriders case, I think even though it's a humongous risk playing an additional playoff game, I think that they're better off actually, and I want them to finish first. Let me preface this by saying I want them to win the West Division. But if they finish second, it's not a bad thing, because I think the more football this team plays right now at this time of year, the better.
What do you think Montreal does?
I think Montreal plays its starters for a while, gets nice and sort of warmed up. And see, the other thing about this too is, Barney, is that so many people think like it's still the same amount of people on the roster, right? Like the teams don't have double the guys where they're just going to put in all of the backups, right? Like the quarterback will come out, probably the wide receiver will have, like, for instance, I'd be shocked. So the way I think it would play out is if Winnipeg went and won that game before the Riders played, I don't think we'd see Milligan. I don't think we'd see Trevor Harris. We probably wouldn't see AJ Ouellette, right? We probably won't see Emelis, right? I think we definitely know we're not going to see Lanier because Lanier's not even on the roster, right? So I think that people forget, like, there's still going to be a ton of guys playing. And again, it's also professional football, right? Like Shea Patterson's going to get a ton of playing time if he plays, and he needs to put it on tape that he's continually building, right? So there's going to be a ton to watch either way.
Is it when you do that, Luke, and you talk about the roster, and it's a great point because it's, again, not a video game. It's not high school football, right? Like there's only so many guys you can dress.
Yeah.
Is it more difficult to sit guys on the defensive side of the ball?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that if you're a team that has gotten where the Riders have gotten this far into the year, I don't think there's going to be somebody who's not prepared, for instance, right? I mean, if you look at the Riders, I don't have the roster in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that Dalkey and Jackson Ford are dressing. They'll have the Lacombo. They'll definitely have one of the Onyekas. They'll have the combo. So there's going to be plenty of ways they can tool the roster, right? Like, for instance, if you want to take out C.J. Revis, right? Like Jaden Dalkey's a guy who's played a ton of football down at the strong side. So I think that they're going to have the guys to rotate in, and also, again, you got to keep guys healthy, right? So.
One of the things that we talked about on the show yesterday, and Suits kind of agreed with Montreal out east because they've been in first place so long. They haven't played any meaningful football in a long time, where last year they had to play 8, 9, 10 weeks in a row of meaningful football. Yeah. They couldn't lose. They were on the ledge the whole time. It's totally different this year, and you can see the results are there. It's just not the same. So I would love to see Winnipeg go down tomorrow, but Winnipeg is playing meaningful football. They're looking good. But on the other side, like if you're Jason Moss, you're any of those guys, you don't want to lose. Like you want to play to win. And that's the hard part where I can't get, like, I don't know anybody on the Alouettes that just wants to lay down and hand that game to Winnipeg.
Well, it's one of the reasons why they have to stay competitive. Is you're exactly right. For instance, it's why I think the Riders have a chance to go far in this playoff. I mean, they've had to fight, scratch, claw their way here. Right? It's sort of like the Alouettes last year, like you mentioned. They won 5 of the last 6. You have to be playing your best brand of football in that final third of the year. The Riders finally got there, right? And I think that's what Jason Moss wants to continue to push. He wants that team to be in a good position because there's a lot of time off, right? We've seen what time off does to, you can start slow in the game. Imagine starting slow in the most meaningful game of the year, like the East or West final, right? Like you can't start slow in these games. So that's why I say the Riders are in a good position either way. If they win, great. But if Winnipeg wins and the Riders stay in second, I think it's the best spot for them. I think that they can beat BC. I think that it'll be tougher. Obviously, I think VA will be the starting quarterback when they play BC. But and again, then you go to Winnipeg. If you're able to beat BC, you go to Winnipeg. And I'll tell you what, man, the hardest thing to do, guys, in football is beat a team 3 times in a row. Winnipeg's going to have their handful.
Ask the Saskatoon Hilltops.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing. So a couple weeks back, your guy Doubles, he was passionate when the VA topic came up, and BC and the Rourke or whatever. And Darian, he's pretty even keel, but he got passionate about the VA thing and how he worked with all those receivers in the offseason. He was building that chemistry, and it came in and just got destroyed. And then you see last week, they look like a totally different football team. And we were surprised a few weeks ago, chatting in the booth before the game, that he wasn't getting the start, and then it just worked out well for the Riders, but they just seemed like a different team. Like they were Did Suits allude to this, that guys seem to be playing differently? It's almost like, was this like quiet quitting before under the Nathan Rourke thing, and then VA comes in, and all of a sudden
you treat a guy like God. You treat a guy like God, right? I mean, that's what you. I mean, they brought in Nathan Rourke. They made a huge deal of it. They thought that they were going to get Nathan Rourke of his rookie season. Again, they mess with the football gods, man. They're crazy. I thought they completely screwed themselves over in BC. It's on them. I was telling people, and I think I said this last show anyway, so this is repetitive for the people that were listening last time I said it. But again, we went through this in 2008. That whole locker room wanted Darian Durant to be our quarterback. There wasn't one guy in there who didn't think Durant shouldn't be our quarterback, and we refused to do it. We refused to do it. It's on Eric Tillman. I always say that. Eric Tillman was the guy who made the decision to continue to play, and he played a quarterback in Michael Bishop. Michael Bishop was a great dude, great athlete, but again, couldn't read a defense, and it killed us. The 2018 was probably better than the 2017. It's just not at the quarterback position, right? And we should have ran right through the playoffs, but they refused to put in the quarterback that had the locker room that everybody wanted to get behind. And BC looked like they almost did the same thing, right? I think that they were thinking on BC. I think that they were hoping that VA didn't play well last week, because then they'd have an excuse. All the argument would be quelled. It wouldn't be an issue anymore. Rourke's our guy, and then he goes out and plays like that, and they're like, no.
Yeah. Well, okay, so but I bet you there was, but let's see, if there's 43 on the roster, take off one named Rourke. There's 42 other guys that wanted VA to play well, and everybody else in the front office or anything else, I'm sure. But those other guys in the locker room who depend on this, the paycheck, the money, the playoff money, and all of that, were probably happy to see VA. And I'm glad that they came out and said he's going to be our starter in the playoffs. I think you kind of had to say that if you want guys to tune you in, or it's tune out city to be like, all right, time to get some time on tape. Here's the other thing.
I mean, they knew that as soon as that game ended, that team needed to focus right in on and it wasn't going to do any favors by having the two media reporters that exist in BC that cover the BC Lions questioning who the guy was going to be. You know what I mean?
Oh, this is awesome.
You know what I'm saying?
Here's the other thing. I love that shot, BC reporters or anybody that does cover you. So thinking about this earlier today, we're focused on BC, or no, we're focused on Montreal and Winnipeg, and over here in Riderville. Has anybody taken the time, because it was about 90 seconds, can we just ignore the Calgary Stampeders coming in here tomorrow with a chance to play spoiler or do something? Like, can we just look past that? Because I'm like, everybody's just assuming we're just going to win.
That's what I was actually thinking about that about an hour ago.
We're just assuming, like, and Calgary's been a dumpster fire. Jake Mayer will be starting quarterback tomorrow. It hasn't been good, but I don't know. I don't know if we're good. We're playing well.
Like you're thinking like a Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt
come out of
Alabama.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Listen, you gotta play at a high level tomorrow. It doesn't matter who's on field because again, you have to be playing your best football going into the playoffs. I'll give you an example. You take it out of Riderville. Look at Ottawa. Ottawa stumbled into the playoffs. They lost 5 of the last 6. They're hurting right now. They're a one-legged man in an ass-kicking competition against. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be tough.
Hey,
I'm serious. It's going to be tough, guys. It's
shout out Weston Dressler and Neil Hughes.
Right, it's going to be tough.
Sell prosthetics.
It's not an easy situation to go in there when you're just kind of reeling and you've got that feeling of like, oh, at least we're in it. And then you probably let the narrative, hey, anything can happen in the playoffs, guys. No, that Toronto team has a high likelihood of winning that game handily. You have to be playing your best, and that's what the issue. And the nice thing about the Saskatchewan Roughriders, guys, is all year long it's been about going 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. So realistically, Corey Mace doesn't have to change the message, right? Hey guys, we're treating this game like every other game, and what do we want to do every other game? We want it to go 1-0. It's no different here. Right? And the guys, by the way, and the guys who are playing for the guys that were game time decisions or the guys who are going to get a lot more reps, this is your opportunity to go out there and put something on tape, right? And continue, because everybody at this time too, I mean, this is also the time where guys are sort of counting their checks, right? The guys, right, like that offseason looms large. And remember, like, hey, after this, there's going to be some decisions made. No team is the same in any year from year to year.
It's kind of like what we talked about in May training camp, but I want to throw this to you. and I know tomorrow's game could be a nothing burger, could mean everything. Who's a guy on the Riders that we're not talking about? Roland Milligan, we're getting a lot of hype. AJ, who's a guy on the Riders we're not talking about that we could be talking a lot about in a couple weeks' time?
Trayvon Tate. Trayvon Tate, the right tackle. I can't tell you. The reason why you haven't mentioned Trayvon Tate is because he hasn't been an issue. And Trayvon Tate had probably, out of all the linemen injuries that the Saskatchewan Roughriders sustained this year, the biggest one was the right tackle spot, because you not only lost a great tackle, great player on the field, you lost a great leader in the locker room. Trayvon Tate has filled in that right tackle spot admirably. I think that he's played really, really well, and I think that out of everybody who got thrown in a crunch, he did the best, and that's saying a lot, because they've gotten some great performances out of some of those linemen. Logan Ferland, obviously, Trevor Reed is a guy who should be one of their rookies of the year, the rookie of the year there. But Trayvon Tate is a guy we haven't talked about a whole lot, but he has had, and I know it's not a sexy position. The other guy I think that we haven't talked about a ton and has been a godsend to this team is Marcus Sayles, number 8. Marcus Sayles has played fantastic football. He's been absolutely everything you need out of a field corner.
Remember how everyone was slagging on him when we got him? The guy's too old. No wonder BC wanted to get rid of him. Blah blah blah.
He had a rough first game, but ever since then, he's become invisible.
Solid.
Yeah, he's been awesome, and again, I think the other guy too. Even though this may not be, I think Keyshawn Johnson, as much as everybody really respects and admires Keyshawn Johnson at the moment, I still think that he's a little bit underrated for some. Not enough guys are talking about him in the league. He's been outstanding for the Saskatchewan Roughriders too. So those are the 3 guys I would say: Trayvon Tate, Keyshawn Johnson, and Marcus Sayles.
I want to go to the Captain Obvious stuff, and I always loved him as a Stampeder. I hated him. I'm like, how did he end up in Hamilton? Jamir Thurman, as advertised, money well spent. And if this guy, and I hope, because we had Charleston Hughes on yesterday, and he talked about Thurman a little bit and what he meant to Calgary, and then Derek Wigan and all that. So I hope Jamir is around for a long time, as long as he decides to play, because to me, he's the difference. Everybody talks about Roland Milligan, but Jamir Thurman just quietly going about it, doing his thing, that Rider defense. Yeah. What a stud.
He's been awesome. We've had some really good middle linebackers in the organization. Anybody, number 11 last year. Before that, we had Solomon Almimian, Mike McCullough, obviously a Canadian middle linebacker who's been we've had some studs in that spot, right?
Big cell phone guy.
Big cell phone guy. Yeah. Text him. Guarantee you. Yeah. No, but you know what I mean. We've had some solid middle linebackers in this organization, and I think that what Jamir Thurman brought this year isn't just leadership. It was a quiet, confident type of leadership. He's not a rah-rah guy. He's just a guy that goes out and does his job and does it at a really high level. I love the speed that he plays with, and I wish I did a better job in my role at times explaining just how fast Jamir Thurman read and scraped and got in on a tackle, right? There's just not enough time in a broadcast between plays to really talk about some of the outstanding things that guy has done, right? Because technically he's awesome. So it's been good. And you know what? He's a tough guy too. That's a tough SOB, man. He was coming in there. I didn't think he was going to last till week 3. I remember seeing him after the first game, and he was doing the old the nerd turning of the whole body if he turned around, right? I was like, oh man, this guy, right? And he's been solid. And he's been there the whole time. You know what I'm talking about, guys? You know when you
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. What a weekend for football here, though. You got Rams must win tonight at Leibel. Rider stamps. You got high school football all over the place, and then you got Thunder, Okanagan Sunday. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to that, but what a weekend for football, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go to that for sure. It was funny. I wanted to go to the last 2 Hilltops games have been in Saskatoon. And I remember thinking, not this last one they won, but the one before that, I remember thinking that was here. I started packing Luther up, getting him ready to go to a football game, and then realized it was in Saskatoon. So I'm glad I'm going to be able to go over and catch them. I'll probably have Red Zone playing in my ear and on my phone, but I'm pumped up, man. I'm pumped up for Scott and his crew. I'm pumped up for Murad. Those guys work so hard, especially when it comes to supplying the resources that enable you to actually succeed after the game, or after the game's done, right? Like, I mean, these guys just aren't gonna, fall off the face of the earth after their Thunder experience is done, because those guys are putting them through school. They're giving them scholarships, right? Like, these guys are gonna have chances to succeed in life, and you want teams like that to win. So I'm pulling for them on Sunday, but Okanagan's a good team. They're always a good squad.
Yeah, well, we had Murad on the radio yesterday, and I asked him, I said, well, what was the setup going into Saskatoon? Like, it was a one bus, too? He said, no, it was 4 buses. They took all of the players that weren't dressing as well, so they could be part of the experience, because this will pay dividends down the road, even if you weren't playing, to see that, to be part of that. Now, a lot of it stuff comes down to, it's just economics, but when you're hearing that, because we're asking him, how big was the caravan from Regina to South? He goes, it was big. It was a big caravan, and just hearing, because we asked him, like, you sound like a proud father. Because, as sort of one of the overseers of this, and you've been involved with the Thunder, and we saw it at the dinner, and here's the thing, and I think to cement this is, you can't look past the Okanagan, but you go, if you can do this, you go and win that national championship, and you really put a stamp on this program. That's something nobody will ever be able to take away from you.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's been so long since they won the last one, right? And that's why, man, you look at the effort those guys are putting in. Murad, his board, guys like Bryn, who have been there forever. Scott's been there since their last championship, right? Like, those guys have been grinding, man, and it's all for them. I mean, that's a thankless job, guys. That's a volunteer position. And, as successful as Murad Al-Khatib is, too, and I know that everybody lauds him for being president, he's just one of the boys. At the end of the day, that guy just wants to be one of the boys, too. And a guy who's supported not just the Thunder, but overall provincial football the way he has, it's again, you just want those guys to succeed.
We got 30 seconds. Should I sprinkle on Michigan State against Michigan or no?
Yeah, actually, I think we're going to win that game.
Okay.
Michigan's struggling. I think that. See, they're not used to struggling. We are. We've been struggling for the last 2 years. And we've got some good freshmen. I'm excited about that game, too.
So, real quick, you went to Michigan State. Michigan, obviously, the rivalry. If you only win one game a year, is that it? Is it that important? Is it like Labor Day here? We have to beat the Bombers. If nothing else matters for the rest of the year, is you have to beat Michigan?
It used to be Notre Dame, where you had to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't have much success. Yeah, Michigan's nice to beat, boys. I mean, you got that big 6-foot-tall Paul Bunyan trophy. It's nice to walk by that thing in your player lounge every single year. So, yeah, I think that we're going to win that game, hopefully.
Jared Zabransky
played
the for Edmonton. That was the Boise State quarterback.
Zabransky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Bill Bransky, Jared Zabransky. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Have a good call tomorrow, Luke. See you at the game Sunday.
Yeah, boys. We'll see you at the stadium.
See you at the stadium.
You got her.